Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Gig Member Q&A call. Today is Tuesday, November the 26th. Your hosts, James Cronk and Scott Massey with you. And we are fresh off an awesome NGCOA Canada conference in Calgary last week. And I got to tell you, James, I think we're fortunate to have one of the conference's most highly regarded speakers joining us today. And that's Ross Liggett from Metolius Golf. If you think about it, there's really no one better than Ross to bring in to talk about innovation, technology, marketing, and data, and really dive into how our audience can best use all those things to improve their business at their clubs for 2025 and beyond. And we're really fortunate to have Ross join us today. That's what he was talking about in Calgary. So to bring a little bit of that to our Q&A call this month for those that weren't lucky enough to be in attendance is hopefully going to be a great thing. I think it will. So I'm looking forward to today's call.
Yeah, you bet, Scott. You're right. We are lucky, and Ross's session was highly regarded, highly rated at the NGCOA Canada conference. And then moving back, even as you know, it's been kind of like the conference whirlwind over the last couple of months. And I remember being at a conference down in the United States a few months ago, and people talking about Metolius Golf and what's this data analysis with Metolius Golf. And that led to Ross and I having a chat on the phone and then connecting and seeing him in person, obviously in Calgary, and joining us today. So without further ado, let's bring on our special guest.
Hello,
Ross, how you doing?
Doing great. I'm not sure what I've done to earn that tremendous introduction there, but thank you for all those wonderful things that you said.
Well, we got to pump your tires, Ross. We're excited about having you here. You just gave a session in Calgary about a variety of areas, including AI, using AI in your club, and some other things. And you and I had a great chat a little while ago about when we first connected, about your history in the golf business and what led you into, I guess, creating Metolius Golf and what you guys do now. So before we go any further, how about you take the time and share a little bit with our listeners about your journey in the golf industry, and then what led you, as obviously, into founding Metolius Golf?
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to. I like to say that, it wasn't until about age, 25 or 30 that I really embraced my inner geek. That's really kind of the story of Metolius. So, unlike most folks, sort of in the technology world, I'm a golf guy through and through. I started picking up range balls when I was 15 years old, and I thought I was gonna, be on the PGA Tour. And then obviously that didn't happen. So then I figured I'd be a golf professional, and then I taught a golf lesson, and I realized that was not for me. And I kind of ended up on the business side of the industry. I knew I wanted to stay in golf. I loved it, and I had, worked continuously in golf through high school and college. And so I ended up, after I ran a couple clubs, I was in operations. I eventually made it into kind of the sales, marketing, and technology world. I worked primarily for multi-course operators, management companies. And I got to a point where I was really kind of struggling and not feeling like I had the right tools to do my job. And so as the head of sales, marketing, and technology, I kind of set out on a mission to find a tool or a set of tools that would allow me to be better at my job. And generally speaking, that's kind of like one specific use case. It's like, I'm, at the home office of a management company, and I'm looking after 10 or 20 or 30 or 40 courses with no access to any sort of timely information, right? Like, basically the only data that I had to try to be proactive with my portfolio of courses was the financial statement, which comes out, 2 or 3 weeks at the close of the month. So, in our 6-month golf season in most cool weather climates, like, by the time we know that there's a problem, it's almost too late to solve the problem. And so what I was doing is just spending all of my time emailing all of my, counterparts, like, send me this report, send me that report, logging into the weather channel to try to figure out what the weather was like, and logging into Facebook to see what posts people were interacting with. And I knew there had to be a better way. And that's really what Metolius is. So I was not able to find a tool that could do those things. So my partner, Eric Flynn, and I built it. And that's what Metolius has become here almost 6 years later.
Fantastic. And And so that answers my next question, which is that 6 years. It's been 6 years, right, that you've been kind of building and learning. And how long has the platform been being used?
So not 6 years. So I left the last management company that I worked at on March 1st of 2019. So I'm a little under 6 years. And then it took us about a year to get the sort of first version of the dashboard out and start testing it with some clients. There's a lot of underlying technology that kind of makes everything work. And that's why we actually call it a data platform and not a business intelligence tool, because it really has morphed into something different. But really, I would say that kind of the start of 2021 is kind of like really when we started going. That was when we had a really strong product. We had, full point of sale integration, budget tracking, marketing integrations, artificial intelligence, weather. So that's when what the data platform is today really sort of took its form. So then, over the last few years, we've had a lot more courses come onto the platform, and we're lucky to get to work with courses all over the world now. It's pretty exciting.
So before we kind of get into some of the specifics about, Metolius, what it provides a client or a club, because I think no matter what kind of club you have, whether you're private, whether you're public, whether you're multi-course, whether you're a mom and pop, whatever your qualification, at the end of the day, we've always been talking about the fact that the golf industry seems to have been slow to adapt to using data to make decisions, right? And I mean, we're literally, how many years we've been talking about yield utilization and about, tee sheet maximization. There's still, there's probably some people still in the golf industry that use pen and paper to book a tee time. And I actually know that's true because I met someone just the other day. But what are some of the common challenges that you see golf clubs facing when it comes to leveraging data effectively? There's you just listed off so many different things, but what are the challenges that a club needs to kind of solve, I guess?
Yeah, so I think it probably goes into one of two buckets. The first one's really sort of like a technology. Technology can hold you back from using data, and so I'll start there. We do have a lot of legacy systems in the golf industry, and when I say legacy, I just sort of mean systems that were developed in a different time. And so right now we're sort of in this era of cloud computing, cloud-based software. You access your software via a website browser as opposed to it being installed on your computer. So those cloud-based technologies, the newer platforms that are out, are much easier to get data out of if you want to understand that data or manipulate that data or put it in a data warehouse. So that's kind of part one. But then also, just the nature of the fact that they are cloud-based systems and they interact with other systems over the internet means they actually create a lot more data than systems that run locally in your clubhouse or on your computer. So number one is modern systems are going to generate more and better data. And that data is really the gold that you'll use. And that's sort of our, the underlying idea of Metolius is the data that's locked away in these systems is the data that has all of the answers to what you need to do to improve whatever you're trying to improve, whether it's revenue or customer service or engagement. The answers are in the data somewhere. So one, get modern systems that generate good, high quality data that you can extract and then use for analysis. So that's one. And then number two, this applies to everyone, and hopefully it's pretty timely given what you gentlemen do, but staff training, right? If you're not putting good data in your system, you're not going to get good data out of your system, right? So best example is like train that golf shop. It's not just player one that you need to capture data for. It's players 1, 2, 3, and 4 who you need to capture data from. And that needs to happen at the golf shop counter. It's the only efficient place for that to happen. Yes, some of the systems have created tools where you can text this reservation to your friends so that they can sign up. We all know where that ends up. It doesn't end up in getting very much more customer data. So number two is you have to train your staff. The data is extremely important. You can throw around lots of numbers. I like to throw around the number $20. There's pretty good evidence that a new email address in your database is worth $20 in revenue for you for every given year. So what I used to say to my team was like, hey, if you fail to ask that person for their email address, you're basically taking $20 from this business and putting it in the trash can. And so, yeah, you got to train the staff to use these new modern systems effectively so that you can get the rich data out that's accurate, and then you can use it to make quality business decisions.
Yeah, I love it. There's the great quote, of course, right? At what can't be measured can't be managed.
That's right.
You know, and which is, and you know, I gave a session in Calgary about food and beverage, and you know, we were talking about like the basics in food and beverage is that if you don't put into the system how many people are sitting at the table, and you can't identify whether or not that table bill for $50 was split by 3 people or 4 people or 2 people or 1 person, you know, then there's no point. Then you can't do all kinds of stuff in order to improve the business, right? And still to this day, it's just like getting your staff to plug in how many guests are sitting at the table properly is like just step 1 of like 5 other steps. But so many times that just doesn't get done, right? So
yeah, exactly.
That's a great point. So now with Metolius, so you mentioned sales and marketing, revenue generation, you know, staff, customer experience, probably staff experience. How does Metolius gather data? And once again, like what's the data that clubs need to have or to understand, you know, to like you said, improve your business however you want to improve it, whatever you're trying to do. So for yourselves, what services outcomes does Metolius Golf provide?
So there's sort of 3 specific areas that we operate in as a company. So the first one is the data platform. And I'll kind of maybe try to weave in some answers here. So when I say data platform, I'm talking about our technology that we've built. And what that technology does is it integrates with commonly used cloud-based systems at golf courses. Generally, the core of that is the tee sheet and point of sale system. But we also integrate with CRM systems, email marketing systems, Facebook, Instagram, Google Ads, website analytics, CRM, customer service, right? So, and generally speaking, to kind of get maybe to the second part of your question is the data is important based on what problem you're trying to solve, right? So if we're trying to solve a revenue problem, which is very broad, there's a lot of things that could impact that, right? There's pricing. So that information is going to be point of sale and tee sheet related. We probably want to understand the weather, right? Because we want to make sure that that revenue problem we have is not caused by something that's totally out of our control. And then if it's not a pricing problem and it's not a customer service problem, which we could get via survey data, and it's not a weather problem, then it's probably some sort of marketing communication problem, or at least it's a problem that can be addressed with marketing and communication. And so that's where the marketing information comes in. So generally what we see with our courses is most of our clients start with that core of point of sale, tee sheet, and weather. And that gives them an understanding of where they need to look, right? Where is the problem? Am I behind in budget in a certain GL account, or am I not selling as much merchandise as I had last year? And then it becomes, how are we going to diagnose what the problem is? And that's when we might start adding more data to the dashboard. So, hey, we're not sure if this is customer service, but let's integrate a survey platform and let's get customer service data in here so we can mash that up with the revenue data and understand if that's where the problem is. Okay, maybe that's not where it is. So now we're going to go, okay, well, our emails, are they getting delivered properly? Are we getting people to click back through to the website? So now we have email data coming in, we're analyzing that. And so we're just sort of going down the tree of problems, I guess, if you could say, or places where we might find an answer. It might be a more positive way to spin it. But first, we got to know what the problem is and then sort of figure out what data is going to help us solve it.
Awesome. Awesome. When you talked about kind of the, you know, marketing, data, pricing, revenue, other than revenue generation, I mean, revenue generation obviously is one of the key things that I would assume an owner operator wants to kind of understand. Are there some other kind of outcomes that are not revenue generated related that is another common request, or another, you know, what's besides revenue generation, what's the next number one kind of outcome that a club operator is trying to identify or fix?
Yeah, so I would say, generally speaking, another big category would be engagement of some sort. So that could be engagement with marketing communication. So let's say, we're going to switch from sending emails via our Outlook email address, and we're going to go get MailChimp and sort of do it the right sort of broadcast way. But we want to evaluate how customers are interacting with the new messaging strategy, right? So having a MailChimp integration, being able to understand what the delivery rate of your messages is, understand what your click-through rates are, understand how your customers are engaging with those emails or social media posts or digital ads, right? All of those things are very important. But I would say, aside from using the dashboard to sort of manage the business, which generally speaking is a revenue generation sort of idea, the other sort of big bucket that we fit is there are a lot of operators out there who are in the same place that I was right before we started Metolius. And that's, hey, everybody send me all these reports. I'm going to put them in an Excel sheet, and then we're going to have this flash report that we're going to mail out to the department heads, every Monday, so everybody knows where they stand. Well, our system automates all of that, right? And we can even customize our dashboards to look exactly like one of those flash reports. Our data services team can build the code that's going to make specific calculations like merchandise revenue per round or things like that. And we can replicate that process, and we can just wipe that time out of someone's schedule to kind of go back to what I wanted to do, which is like, I want to spend less time mashing up data and more time analyzing data to make better decisions. And that's sort of one of the big outcomes that we deliver to clients. So it's not like everybody was starting from nothing. A lot of our clients started with a pretty solid, robust reporting system. It was just 100% manual. And what we've done is just made it automatic.
So let's just say I just bought a golf course. I'm new to the industry. I'm not a tech geek like you. Although I'd like to say that I'm a much better tech geek today than I was. And Scott was in your session. Scott came out of your session and said, hey, you know what? I know quite a bit of stuff. And I'm like, of course you do. Like, we've made ourselves into tech geeks. But I think the question that's coming up is about what are some of the basic things, right? So what are some of the simple steps that I can take as a club manager, golf course owner, to make better day-to-day decisions, strategic decisions? What are some of the simple steps that I need to, obviously we're going to get to the fact, well, you should hire Metolius Golf. But, besides that sales pitch, what are some simple steps that I can take to improve my business intelligence in my operation?
So I'm going to take a little roundabout way to answer this question. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to get on my soapbox here for a second. It boggles my mind that the golf industry is has not embraced sort of the data-driven decision-making workflow in the way that other industries have. And I think the analogy, or the reason why I feel like there's some conflict here, is that golf itself is an extremely data-driven game. And most people running golf courses are doing that because they love the game of golf, right? So like, if we take a step back and we think about golf, like, okay, we have a set number of holes, generally speaking, either 9 or 18. And then we have this system to tell us how hard they are, right? Par 3, par 4, par 5. So that we can measure our performance against that benchmark. That's all that is. It's just a benchmark. It should take you 1 shot to get on the green and 2 putts, therefore it's par 3. And then on top of that, we have this whole international system that measures our playing ability against all the other people that are out there so that we can understand when we're making progress with our golf game. And we have no standardized systems like that as an industry, which doesn't make sense to me. However, I guess the problem we're trying to solve. So that's kind of the key, right? Like all of us who play golf have this mechanism in our brain that knows how to measure, right? If we know how we're doing and we know what the benchmark is, well, then we can understand if we're performing well or not. And so that structure, this concept of the dashboard is your scoreboard. It's the scoreboard for your business, is kind of place number one. And then to specifically answer the question, the number one thing that any general manager can do to drive more data-driven decision makings is to democratize access to the data, make it clear how department heads are performing against their goals, and then give them the ability to manage their own business unit within the club. And that's what the Metolius dashboard does in a single course, from general manager to department heads, and in a multi-course situation from home office to general managers, and then again another level to department heads, right? So if your food and beverage manager gets an email every Monday morning that has a screenshot of their dashboard and it says, hey, you are 17% behind your a la carte food and beverage budget, you have now empowered your department head to solve that problem. And if they're not waiting for the financial statement to come out 3 weeks later and for you to go, hey, why was food and beverage a la carte food down so much? They are getting that information, and it is their responsibility to form a plan of attack to solve that. And that data-driven decision-making culture put into a club atmosphere with the propensity of all of us to measure our performance against the goal is what sort of drives everything forward. So you got to give your department heads access to data, and you have to empower them to make the decisions to improve their own results. That's the key.
Nice.
Love it. Good soapbox. I like that soapbox. I don't know what the next question is, but it's not. I'm not going to ask it because I'm going to ask this question instead. So what obstacles do you come across in explaining the value of that to owners, operators that don't get it? What are the you must not have 100% batting average. So like what are the obstacles? So and let me get on my soapbox for a minute.
Yeah.
This is the conversation we have all the time about a couple things. One is, what is a benchmark? So like, what is a benchmark? In the, yes, food costs 28%, 30%, 32%, but not if you're a golf club, private club. That's not going to be your food cost benchmark. When your members find out that your food cost is 43% and they lose their mind because their buddy Bill owns a restaurant down the street and he's at 29%, you have to have that long, laborious, stupid conversation about how your private club food and beverage is an amenity. It shouldn't lose your shirt. You know what I mean? We know the conversation. Yeah. So number one is establishing benchmarks, but number two is, and this I think is one of the new things that's coming about cloud-based systems and services and the variety now of what people can get, is that there's so many different shiny objects in the world of getting their business to run. Payroll systems, HR systems, online training platforms like Golf Industry Guru, safety platforms like the Toolbox, and everyone always said, people always saying, I wish they all worked together. I wish they could I just have like one spot and one point, right? And so, that's what's happening. So Scott, did you have a point or was it a question?
No, I was just saying they want one place.
They want one place. Exactly. Yeah. So leading into that, Ross, so what are some of the challenges that you find or that you come across when you get on your soapbox and you give this message? What do you hear back sometimes?
So I'm going to go to the one system thing first, and then I'll go around. So we hear that a lot, right? Like, we want one system. And we do have one system. It's called the internet. It's what ties all your systems together. And that's the day and age that we live in now, right? In the old days, when systems were not able to be integrated together, we had to have features for everything that we needed to do in one system, and then getting data from one system to another was manual. If you're using legacy systems at your club, that's still the process that you're in. However, if you've migrated to a cloud system, that system has the ability to be integrated. And that was actually a large part of what our conversation. That's a large part of what our conversation at NGCOA Canada was about, was how do you select the right systems to build an integrated software stack? We're not going to go back to the situation where you might be able to have one system that does everything. The future of technology is really small systems that are all connected and talking to each other. So in the process of selecting your payroll system, the questions you need to ask are, do you have an open API? Can my other systems integrate with that? Are there pre-built integrations, or do I have to pay somebody to build an integration for me? Like, these are the questions that we need to ask. They're different questions than we used to ask, but we're essentially getting to the same place. So the era of one system is over. It's just, we're not going back there. We need to get comfortable with APIs and comfortable with integrations.
So let me ask you a question. So, I mean, when Scott and I were talking about how to make our platforms more efficient and effective, you know, we ended up choosing to work with Lightspeed because we feel like they embrace, as a POS company, they embrace the concept of integration with I mean, they integrate with yourselves, they integrate with all kinds of stuff. Why would a POS system, and we don't have to name them, but I know they're out there, why would a POS system not be open and willing to integration? What is the background technology answer? Because what I hear when we were talking to various different operators is, you know, my question is, what system you use? And they go, such and such. And I go, well, we could integrate our platform into that system. And they go, oh yeah, no, we don't. Our POS system doesn't integrate. Yeah. So what's the rationale thinking behind that? Is it good or bad? What is the rationale thinking behind that?
Well, I'm a big believer in sort of this modern age that we're living in of software ecosystems, where you can select a best-in-breed technology and then integrate it with another best-in-breed technology. So I do. It's a totally personal opinion, right? But my personal opinion is that you know, it's bad to not be able to integrate. Of course, my whole business is built on being able to integrate, so I'm pretty biased in that opinion. But there's a couple reasons that we see. Like, number one goes back to the actual technology. If the database that runs the software is on a machine, whether that's a workstation or a server at the club, it makes it challenging, not impossible, but challenging to get data out of that machine, because we're not dealing with a cloud-based system that's meant to be accessed from outside. We're dealing with actually the opposite, an on-premise system that's designed not to be able to be accessed from the outside, right? It could be behind a firewall. It could have different security settings. Like, it could be non-standard. There's all kinds of reasons why it could be bad. So reason number one would be just a limitation of the technology, a technology from a different era. So that's problem one. I would say on the other side of the equation, there are certain companies out there that we won't name that they want to have all of the pieces of the pie. And so if we use sort of, like, if I use Metolius's relationship with Lightspeed as an example, like, we do reporting. That's what we do. There are reporting features within Lightspeed. Lightspeed could have said to, no, Metolius, we got reporting covered. People don't need more than what we have. And if they do, we'll sell it to them. That's not the approach that Lightspeed takes. They want to let their customers use the best-in-class software, so they embrace technology. But there are companies who do take that line of reasoning. Like, we have reporting, and we'll capture the revenue for reporting, and we will not integrate. And you could, you know, expand that out to whatever, payroll, CRM. CRM's a big one. When I was in the management company world, where I did a lot of work in CRM, and there's a lot of golf systems that have CRMs, which, if you compare those to HubSpot or Salesforce or ActiveCampaign, they're not even close, right? And I don't think that's the fault of the golf company, right? I mean, Salesforce does $7 billion a year or something like that. Like, they have a lot more developers. They can make a lot more features in their product. A golf company, you know, we got 25,000 golf courses you can possibly sell this thing to, and you know you're not going to get all of them. So just the amount of features that can be developed based on the scale of the business is just much smaller, which is another reason why I'm a big fan of the software ecosystem. I want to use a real CRM. I don't want to use some lightweight thing that was built for a very basic use case in the golf industry.
Do you ever get people talking to you and concerned about privacy, data privacy?
Yeah. It's probably, if not the most, one of the top three sort of, topics of the age. And it's absolutely an important thing that, you know, because we have to take responsibility for being the stewards of that data as a sub-processor. I wish my legal bill for, privacy policy updates and things like that was a lot smaller than it is, but it's just part of the game, and having an understanding of what data you have living in what systems and what users have access to that data is really step number one. By far, the biggest security vector for any golf course is the logins of the employees in the golf shop, because generally speaking, those logins have access to all of the data, all of the customers, all of the email addresses, all of the transaction history. If there's a place where someone's going to get your data, that's probably the first place it's going to happen. But yes, like privacy is a huge concern. Having a privacy policy on your website, like if you're a golf course and you don't have a privacy policy on your website, like you need to do that today. Because there are lawyers out there who are just scanning the internet, trying to find people that don't have privacy policies and trying to get you to settle for $1,500 to avoid the lawsuit. And, unfortunately that stuff happens. It also happens with ADA compliance. But yeah, you gotta be playing by the rules. GDPR here in the States, we have some new privacy laws that are coming up by states that are very similar to GDPR. So you have to be very careful of who you're sharing data with. So for example, if you share data with Metolius, we need to be listed as a sub-processor on your privacy policy. And you need to make sure that what we do with the data is included within your privacy policy. It's your responsibility as the person who collected and owns that data to make that available to your customers whose data you are actually the stewards of.
So benchmarking. So we talk about your dashboard, right? And then the client says, okay, our goal is $20 per customer in retail on a daily basis when we've got whatever, great weather, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. So is there any kind of, does the operator say to you, well, Ross, what should it be? Like what is the benchmark for all of my competitors, for all the golf courses around me? Like help me out. Like, do you use your data? There's some great platforms out there, club benchmarking, many others in different parts of the world. And the concept of benchmarking is brilliant when you have enough participants in your particular area of similar mindedness and similar programs and clubs that you can actually compare data, right? If you've got a golf shop that sells golf balls and gloves and then chocolate bars, obviously your dollar per retail is different than a golf club that does club fitting 6 times an hour and is selling a set of TaylorMades once a day, right? So does your platform also provide a club with benchmarking that is relative to the marketplace?
We do not do any market benchmarking as part of our standard product today. And I'll delve into that a little bit more. So I think when we're talking about industry benchmarking, I think that's one segment of benchmarking. And frankly, for reasons that you just said, I think it's the least important of the benchmarking, verticals that you could sort of utilize. I think the most important benchmark you have is yesterday. And the second most important benchmark that you have is today, last year. Because if you just measure the change in what's happening at your business versus yesterday and today, last year, if we manage that up, we're going to be managing our business up. And I even think sometimes the concept of industry benchmarking, like maybe my food and beverage revenue per round is $6. And I have 4 items on my menu and 14 different kinds of beer. But the industry benchmarking in my area is $47 a round. And that's because everybody's got a fine dining restaurant and is doing outings and like all of these other things. So I think the industry benchmarking can almost paint a picture that isn't accurate, where your yesterday's sales are your yesterday's sales, and you can make direct comparisons of what changed from today to yesterday or today to prior year. So that's number one. However, the way that our platform works is we take data from all of these different systems and we normalize it together, which means we have the ability to do industry level benchmarking. At this moment in time, we don't have enough confidence that we have enough courses reporting data into the platform to be able to execute that at the level that it would need to be executed to protect privacy, as well as to just provide reasonable results. Like we have hundreds and hundreds of golf courses on our platform, but there are tens of thousands of golf courses in the world. And before we offer a benchmarking product, we want to make sure that that is a great product that's going to do the things it's supposed to do. And so along those lines, we are working with a company here, have partnered with a company here in the US called Pellucid, which does do some standardized benchmarking. And we have about 15 or 20 courses participating in a beta right now. And our plan is to release that on a wider scale and see how many courses are interested in having that sort of data. And then with the potential to certainly expand northward to you or around the world. So our platform actually sort of, just by the nature of the way it works, it does what you're talking about, but we haven't released any products for users around it, those things.
Scott, I promise in a minute we're going to get back to our questions, but I got one more completely off top.
No worries.
So it just, what you just talked about there made me think about, once again, the food and beverage presentation I gave, which was about, that the number of times that we go into a club and we do an audit, right? Let's just say food and beverage, kitchen audit. Let's just say an inventory audit, right? And I've never done it where it's been accurate. Like I've never, and that's not to be rude. That's not to be whatever. I'm just saying to you that, like, in the food and beverage business, when you go in and do an audit of product or inventory or whatever, somehow everyone's got a different version of writing off, the roast beef that's been in the freezer for 3 years that we're still counting, or the fact that we still, we expect those 22 dozen, top, whatever golf balls to show the Titleist to show up one day. We just missed the count 4 months in a row, right? So is there a way that, you talked in the very beginning about staff training and about the importance of good data in, the right data in. When you look at all that data on a dashboard, you kind of see those trends. Does it identify in any way where there might be gaps in the inputting of data, in the program of data? Because, bad data in just gives bad data out, right? So
yeah, exactly. Yes, we have a couple of checkpoints, primarily related to the assignment of point of sale items to categories and mapping of categories in the point of sale system over to budget GL accounts. So we have like little checkpoints, little boxes that'll turn red if there are things that need to be updated, or if there's something that needs to be investigated in the point of sale or budget system to make sure that it's all coming through accurately or needs to be configured differently. We also have a few checkpoints that are sort of related to that staff training. So a good example of that is on our page that summarizes round information. Not only does it tell you, the stuff you'd expect, like how many rounds did I do and how much green tea revenue did I collect and what was my average fee and player types and things like that, but it also tells you what percentage of customers did you capture an email address for. So with that information in that dashboard updated every day, if you wanted to create an incentive for your golf shop staff, like, hey, if you get to 75% this month, we're going to have a pizza party, or I'm going to take you to play the private club down the street, or whatever it's going to be. Like, having the ability to manage your actual staff activity and how they're doing the things that you've trained them to do is another feature that we've built into the system.
Love it. Scott, get us back on track, bud. What's the next question?
Yeah, where do you want to go next?
Let's do the one that's scheduled.
Okay, let's talk about just some specific examples of clubs that really transform their business, working with this type of data. So maybe you can just dive into what kind of specific changes they make and just sort of paint a picture for that success story for us.
Sure. So I'm going to use kind of a twofold example of a course that used a couple of our services, because I think it'll kind of round out kind of this particular use case. So we had a pretty high-end resort type facility that we started working with about 18 months or so, who did not have a strong data strategy, so didn't really understand what was happening on the tee sheet, mostly public play, and who also didn't have a strong email marketing strategy. So the first thing that we did with that club is we got a dashboard in place to look at the rounds data, try to understand how the pricing strategy was working. They had multiple courses, so try to understand how people moved between those different courses when they came and visited the particular result. So the dashboard served its purpose as an analysis tool to try to figure out where there were opportunities, where there were places to improve, and where maybe some of the existing strategies weren't being as effective as we would hope they would be. So that was kind of part number one. Now, again, when we have a T-sheet integration like that and POS integration, we're getting every transaction with the customer associated with the transaction, and we're getting every tee time with the customer associated with the tee time, as long as the course has put that in, which actually, by and large, most courses do a pretty good job of getting good data in the system. Players 2, 3, and 4 can be nebulous at times, but for the most part, we're pretty good as an industry. So this course had all this data locked away in the system, right? So we got it out of there, we got it into a database, we attached it to a dashboard, and we developed some areas where we thought we can improve. And area number one was doing a better job with email marketing communication. So then we have the data, right? So then we started piping all those customers directly into their email system. So there's no worry about, hey, when I create a new customer in the point of sale system, I have to go add them into my email marketing system. So that happens automatically now. So we save somebody a bunch of time, or potentially that probably actually wasn't happening before. So we found tens of thousands of new customers that we could then start communicating with. So then we decided, okay, well, what we found was a lot of the customers played one course at this particular resort and then never came back. And so we felt that there was an opportunity to educate people when they play their very first round about all the other things that the resort has to offer. And it wasn't just about the other 6 golf courses. It was about lodging opportunities, food and beverage opportunities, instruction opportunities, merchandise opportunities. So we went over into the email system and we say, hey, every time we add a new email address to the system, after one day, we want you to send this message that talks about the golf courses. After another 3 days, we want you to send this one that talks about lodging opportunities. After another 3 days, we're going to send and on, and there's about 5 or 6 messages in that sequence. So that's called a welcome series. One of the single most impactful things any golf course can do. We've run this analysis across our portfolio several times over the last few years, and we found that every year since COVID started, between 50 and 55% of the unique people who visit a golf course play 1 round per year.
Wow.
So we have a lot of talk about loyalty programs in this industry. I'm getting on another soapbox right now, so everybody beware. A lot of people are like, we're going to create a loyalty program. After 10 rounds, you get a 1 free. Well, about this many of your customers play 10 rounds a year. So the amount of people that you're impacting with that loyalty program is tiny, right? We're probably talking about 10, 15, 20 customers. However, 55% of your customers play 1 time. The opportunity is getting people from 1 round to 2 rounds. And then the next biggest opportunity is 2 rounds to 3 rounds. 10 to 11 is so small, it's not even worth thinking about.
Yeah.
Okay, so welcome series is in. Now we're increasing frequency. Now we want to specifically engage those customers by delivering messages about courses that they haven't ever played. So then we upgraded the integration with ActiveCampaign. We brought over all the tee times. So now we can say, hey, show me every customer that hasn't played course X and send them a message with a $10 promo code for course X. And we can do that based on any tee time reservation or any point of sale transaction. So we can even do things like show me everybody who bought a glove and then played 3 rounds, and now let's send them an email to buy another glove because that one's probably worn out. So these are the opportunities that the data unlocks, right? Like I was saying, like the answers are in the data. Everything is in the data. If we could just get it out of the system and start using it,
Yeah.
these are the ways we can use it. We can use it for analysis to figure out, hey, we need to get frequency up. And we can also use it for actual marketing communication and actually use it to segment our customers and deliver the right message to the right customer at the right time, which is what marketing is all about.
Very
You know,
cool.
I know people are gonna, maybe say this is an infomercial, but it's not. It's really not. Because
can I be honest? I don't want to build another one. For everybody that's listening, I don't want to build another one of those systems. I want to give you the data and let you understand it and develop your own segmentation strategy.
Well, and my point, Ross, is also that the reality is that whether you're using another third-party platform or you're just doing it yourself, all of these things are all possible, right? It's
100%.
like you all of these things can be done. You can take your whatever your system has, whether it's on a server downstairs in the basement, you can still get this information and make these types of targeted decisions by analyzing the data that you currently collect. Obviously, step number one is to make sure you have as much data as possible, that you have, a big database, that you are capturing emails. I mean, we back in the day when the internet was literally just starting, Scott and I, we put back then when you couldn't automatically keep people's email addresses. We used to have a contest on the last par 3 of the golf course. We'd put someone out there for 8 hours a day. They'd have a hit the green competition. If you hit the green, you got a 25% off in the restaurant. And to participate in the program, you had to give us your email address. And we were literally writing down on a piece of paper by pen email addresses because, at that time, there was no technology to automatically capture it. But the point is that strategy can still work today.
No doubt.
Like you said, we talk about, pardon me?
I said yes. That can definitely still work.
You froze for a moment.
Oh,
we're good on our end, James. Are you?
There you go.
Are you back?
Almost back.
good.
Maybe he's not back. Why don't we roll Ross for a second?
So
I think, James, your internet might be delayed a little bit. That's all.
there you go.
Oh, okay.
Mine's delayed.
I think so. Ross and I seem to be good.
Now
So
we're back on.
Ross, I'm going to throw a question at you. We'll see if James catches up. So let's talk a little bit about digital marketing for a second. So just misconceptions around digital marketing and how clubs can kind of overcome those misconceptions to reach more members, guests, guests being daily fee players likely. So any thoughts on this question while we work through our tech challenges here?
Yeah. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Yeah.
All right. So a lot of different directions to go with this one, but I'm going to focus on social media, at least to start. If we want to have part 2 to talk about some other stuff, we can definitely do that. But
perfect.
one of the things that has changed a lot over the last 10 years with social media is the ability for your posting. And I'm pretty much talking about Facebook and Instagram here, although TikTok definitely falls in this category as well. But when you post on social media, not all of your followers are seeing that content. In fact, generally only 15 to 20% of the people who follow your page are going to see all of your posts. And there's 2 reasons behind that. Number one is the algorithm that decides what content to show what users is delivering content that the platform thinks that user will engage in, because Facebook and Instagram's only goal is to maximize the amount of time that users spend on the platform. So if they don't think Ross is going to engage with, Collindale's golf course's post, they're not going to put it in my feed. So that's number one, is that just because you're posting does not mean that everybody's seeing what you're posting. You have to pay to make sure that happens. And so that's learning number one. If you want to reach everybody, you have to pay to play on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok. It doesn't have to be a ton. You can dedicate $200 a month for the whole year, and you'll probably reach all of your 2,000 or 3,000 followers that you have on your page. It's not a huge amount of money. You do have to learn how to use the advertising side of Facebook, which is a little bit of a learning curve. It's not terribly difficult, but you can do it, or you can have someone help you do it. So that's kind of number one. The second one, I would say, is a little bit more recent with social media, and it really came along with TikTok. So before TikTok, I don't know if I just coined a new term right there. Before TikTok, people were using social media for entertainment, but also for information gathering. And when TikTok came along, it swung really far to entertainment, and specifically video content entertainment. And largely when folks are on Instagram and TikTok right now, that is a replacement for watching television. And if all you're doing, if your organic content strategy on those platforms is just to tell people what's happening at your facility, Hey, we got couples night on Friday, golf shop sale, book your holiday party. You are the commercial. And it's the only way that you're interacting with your people. And frankly, it's almost not worth using social media if that's how you're going to use it. Unfortunately, the other side of the equation is if you want to use it effectively, you must be entertaining. You must be an entertainer. And that's hard, and it's not cut out for everybody. Like, not everybody's going to be a TV anchor or an actor on a show. And that's almost where you need to be to do a great job on social media right now. It'll be very interesting to see what happens. And if businesses stop using organic social media and go completely to the advertising because all they're trying to do is get a message out, or if we start paying content generators internally. So instead of going out and hiring an influencer and paying them a bunch of money, you just find someone who's great at social media and you hire them in, and you're going to be our social media content producer. And instead of paying for TV commercials, you're paying a salary to someone, and all they're doing is taking pictures and videos and creating content for you on a regular basis. Very interesting to see what happens with all of this. But the story is, if you want to create great engagement organically without paying on social media, you must be an entertainer. You must create entertaining content, which is not a post about couples wine and nine on Friday night, unfortunately.
Yeah, well said.
I love that. That makes total sense. And you can totally see the clubs that are get that and understand that and are creating content that is interesting and that you want to follow, you want to watch. And I couldn't agree with you more. I think I think it's going to become a very exciting time in the golf space with all of the new energy that's coming from, Top Golf and screen golf and par 3 golf and all this kind of stuff, to be creating good content that people are interested in watching, and not just some yahoos, flipping a golf cart because they're drunk or, all this stuff, right?
I think that the other thing that's important to add in here is if you have a really strong organic social media strategy, if you're investing a lot in organic social media, you are reaching a global audience. So you're making that investment knowing that only a very small percentage of the people who are consuming that content can actually even become customers of yours. It's important to think about that before you invest resources in that, because you will be wasting a lot of those resources in order to get the people that are within your little bubble that can actually use the facility. But that's an important thing to think about from an ROI standpoint. And if it's worth having your own content creator, or if you're better off just paying Facebook to make sure your message gets to anybody who plays golf within a 20-mile radius of your facility.
And Ross, from the golf industry guru infomercial soapbox, how about we just spend some time and energy making sure that when someone walks in our building, we try to sell them something. like at the end of the day, like, people are spending all kinds of this stuff, yet they don't get upsold a dessert. They don't get asked if they need a new golf glove. No one says, can I book you a tee time next week? Nobody says, hey, we've got a brand new, Under Armour kind of golf shirt in the golf shop today. Like, whatever it might be, right? There's so many opportunities that are right in our face to sell people stuff, to increase our dollar per visit. And we don't even do that. Like, if not, that's a generalized comment. I'm just saying in general, we don't do enough time or spend enough energy or spend enough resources to make that happen. And we got to make sure that we don't get distracted by shiny objects, right? And that's where it comes back to data. If I can tell you that when Mary works, the dollar per customer in the golf shop is $3 more than when Steven works, guess what? Now we've identified a problem, right?
Yep.
Now we've identified an opportunity, actually, right? And so it's like, anyway, let's get to, I want to finish off with asking about where you think so you gave a session on AI. We talk about AI a lot. We now use AI in our content creation business all the time. We think it's really exciting and freaky, but it's exciting. Where do you think it's going? And where I'd like you to kind of answer this question, Ross, is for the operator, the general manager, the club owner that is overwhelmed by all of this stuff, okay, by data collection, by analysis, by before TikTok and after TikTok and all this kind of stuff that, is overwhelmed, because I would say that is more common, right? So it's more, if we looked at the golf industry in the 25,000 courses and looked at who was data advanced versus who was data neutral versus who was data, what is data? More people are going to be on the bottom of that trifecta than on the top. That's for sure. There might be some people, there's a lot more people in the middle, but the most majority, I think, is down on that bottom. It's just kind of trying to discover it. And all you got to do is go to a bunch of conferences and hear people talk about it and see the people in the room to realize that they're like, what is ChatGPT? So where do you think it's going to go in the golf industry? You got a couple minutes to finish off.
I think we're going to see a few things. And it's largely like, if we bifurcate the sort of AI into two segments, right? So paraphrasing sort of some presentations here, but AI is really just a user interface that allows a machine to do something that a human used to do, right? So I like to use the example of the Netflix algorithm, right? Like you log into Netflix and there's a big thing that says, well, what you should watch next, right? Well, that's a user interface. That's what you're interacting with. Underneath that, there's a machine learning algorithm that has looked at the things that you've watched and what other people like you have watched, and it's suggesting things that you haven't seen yet. So that's machine learning. And then underneath that is data, all of the data of what everybody has ever watched on Netflix, right? That process is how AI gets built, right? But at the top there, when we talk about machine learning, we have this sort of newer version or different version of AI that's all the rage right now, and it's called large language models, neural networks, whatever you want to call it. That's what ChatGPT is. It's a large language model. It is a machine learning algorithm embedded into a user interface, and what it actually does is predict the next word in a sentence. So when you type in a question in ChatGPT, it has learned from every word that's published on the internet, and it's predicting the answer to your question one word at a time. That model is trained on public data, every word on the internet. That's going to stay. There's going to be models that are trained by other people, and you're going to have access to use that model. When you're using ChatGPT, that's what you're doing. You're using their model, not yours. What we don't have a lot of in the golf industry right now, and what we're going to have more of, is models that were trained specifically on your data for your own use case. So for example, if you've got 40 bottles of Canis that someone found in the food and beverage inventory when they came in and did a better job of counting things, and you need to figure out how to get rid of those, you probably want to know what members at your club actually buy $200 bottle of wine or whatever Canis is going for these days. You will have the ability, like someone will offer a model, hopefully it's Metolius, but somebody might beat me to it, that where you can say, hey, I got 50 bottles of Canis. Tell me the 200 people that are most likely to buy this so that I can create a special wine dinner and then send a special invitation to all of the people, right? Like that's where we're going to be in the not very distant future. So we're going to start to see not just models that we can access and play with ourselves like ChatGPT. We're going to have our own models that deliver specific information to us that allows our business to perform better, whether that's from revenue engagement, engagement, expense management, or whatever else it's going to be.
Well, and it's like on our Gig Nation knows about our chat feature, our chat guru, right? So when you ask a question on our chat guru feature, it's not going to the World Wide Web and finding any kind of crap that's out there. It's getting expert advice from the 240 hours of content that we have in our library.
Exactly.
That's my last sales pitch. So, ladies and gentlemen, this commercial has come to an end. But if you take away our pitches, the reality is that so much great stuff in there, Ross. Thank you so much. How can our members and our listeners get in touch with you? I guess just go to Metolius Golf and send you an email, right?
Yeah, metoliusgolf.com is our website. That's Metolius golf.com. You can find us on LinkedIn, fill out the request form on the website, email me, ross@metoliusgolf.com. It might take me a day to get back to you, but I promise I will get back to you. And we're here to help, even if it's just to have an introductory conversation. Maybe we can point you in the right direction, part as friends. We do that all the time. We're happy to do it. Our mission is to help golf course operators leverage modern technology to be more efficient. And if we can do that in a 30-minute meeting, great. We're happy to do it.
Love it. Ross, thank you so much for your time today. Scott, a great Q&A call. Gig Nation, thank you for being here, and everybody else. And as always, we will see you next time on The Inside.
Thank you, guys.